Can you guys see me? Is that a thing? Hi, Founder fans. I think I'm live. Can you please leave me a comment and let me know if I'm live right now? How about that? How about you guys help me out and let me know if I'm live? And if you've been able to see me, you haven't. Okay. I owe every single one of you an apology, I think. Please leave a comment and let me know if you can see me right now. That would be, hi, Matt. Can you see me? I'm live. Have you not seen anything for the last half hour? Have I? Okay, guys. First of all, my apologies for the last half hour when apparently you were all sitting here hanging out. That's awesome, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate this. Now, just to sum up, I've spent the last half hour talking to myself, thinking you guys were watching and commenting to me. No, I can't believe you guys hung around like that. That's so amazing. Thank you so much. Now, I know for you, the stream just started, but I'm half an hour in. I'm going to go back to the beginning for you guys because I can't explain how pumped I am that you guys hung around this whole time. I'm going to drink some of this coffee, which I'm glad I decided to have coffee late tonight. I don't know what happened. I went live exactly the way I went live on Wednesday. You guys saw me on Wednesday, right? You were asking questions. It was fine. I don't know what happened. Apparently, I have to hit live on YouTube also, even though YouTube was playing me. I'm not going to get into it. I'm just going to offer you a sincere apology and throw it at being an amateur. Can you get a drug test? No, right now I wish I was on drugs because I would have an excuse for my misdeeds. So, okay, let's do trivia. I have a deck. I'm going to start from the beginning. This deck of cards that I got about a decade ago. It's 48 cards about the American Revolutionary War itself. Now, what I said half an hour ago at 8:15 when I went live was, well, I've not read any of these cards in a decade since I first bought them. That is no longer true, as I did go through 6 of them. Now, there's 48 cards. My goal was to get through 12 of them so that we have this deck for the next 4 weeks. And then after that, I have a few other decks, and we can do... Also, you guys are on a delay. Excuse me. You guys are on a delay. Oh, it's starting out fun. You scared me, Nacho. I see you say started out fun, and now everything I see you guys say, I'm like, shit, can they see me? Can they see me? I'm also like, the last half hour been like trying to keep going, but while checking over here to like see if you guys know. Anyway, happy Friday. Let's have some fun. Thank you for coming. I know it's a little bit late, but I did get through the first 6 cards, but we're going to get through 12 cards. These are pretty basic questions, and I'll try and elaborate on them a little bit because it's a lot of fun. But as basic as the questions are, the answers on the back are deep. They're like almost as long as an article from Founder of the Day. So, let's go back through these first 6. I am going to give you guys 10 seconds to answer after I ask the question. And then we'll see who gets right. We'll keep all our promises. We'll keep all our... There's no scoring. This is fun, and we're going to learn. So, the first question is, why didn't George Washington sign the Declaration of Independence? While we wait, Nachos, no, I am not a teacher. I appreciate teachers and all they do. Personally, I live in New York, and if I were to be a teacher, this would be a tough area to do it. I'm also not a morning person, so that hurts it. Although I did just start homeschool for my 4-year-old for a pre-K, so I guess I am now. I got a discount at Staples when I bought a bunch of homeschooling stuff, a whiteboard and a bunch of books for my kids. So Staples gives you 20% off if you're buying teaching supplies. Also, whiteboards are impossible to find, but Staples has started printing their own if you're in the market for a whiteboard. They're like $8. They don't erase very well, but it's something. That's 10 seconds. Why did George Washington sign the Declaration of Independence? I don't see anyone answering, so I'm just going to go. Before, I figured you guys just didn't want to answer and play along. So now I'm trying to give you guys time, but it's kind of a lengthy answer. So, why didn't George Washington sign the Declaration of Independence? I'm not sure of George Washington. George Washington, if you're not familiar, was Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. He was too busy killing British soldiers. You're right, Ned. A year beforehand, he was sent to command the Continental Army, is the short answer. There was a much longer answer here. It talks about the guys who signed the Declaration. It also says that the final draft of the Declaration was actually signed by John Hancock, which is true. On July 4th, John Hancock, as president of the Continental Congress, was the only one to sign the few copies of the Declaration that went out, including the one that went to George Washington, except that these documents had to be attested to by the Secretary of Congress, Charles Thompson. So no, this card's wrong by guilty of omission, I'll say, because they did not include the signature of Charles Thompson. George Washington was busy with the ladies. You, my friend, I think are thinking of Gouverneur Morris, who would later be the draftee of the introduction to the preamble of the Constitution, who was one for the ladies. And also, when they made a statue of George Washington, he's the one with a similar build who they modeled the body after. So that's fun. Now, let's see. Next question. Who were the Minutemen? TikTok, if you're watching this channel, probably not the most difficult question to answer. TikTok. You guys are typing them in. The Minutemen were essentially just militiamen, generally in New England, although other states, other colonies, I should say, did create Minutemen of their own. And they were simply militiamen who were generally the best fighters and also agreed to be on call to respond within a minute, theoretically. Excuse me, Massachusetts citizens. Yes, they were citizens, and they were primarily Massachusetts, but not only. You know, New Hampshire and Connecticut had Minutemen that they also sent. And some of the states in the South, because they didn't know if the British would do something terrible, like come get the powder from Charleston or something like that. So the idea, after it started in Massachusetts, spread kind of quickly. And I know that because I did read this. It does talk about the Lexington and Concord battle, and it does talk about not just Paul Revere, but William Dawes and Samuel Prescott, who I'm very, very excited that it actually mentions William Dawes and Samuel Prescott, because Dawes took a different path than Paul Revere on the same ride, and then met up with him in Lexington, and then as they were leaving Lexington, accidentally bumped into Samuel Prescott, which is great because the British came. Paul Revere is the only one who got arrested on that ride that's named after him for some reason. William Dawes escaped but ran away. And Samuel Prescott, who by chance ran into these gentlemen and decided to ride with them, ends up getting back to his home of Concord, warning the town, and then continuing on to warn the rest of the people and collecting more Minutemen. Samuel Prescott is a huge, important founder. And actually, you may or may not have heard of George W. Bush and his daddy, George H.W. Bush. They are descendants of Samuel Prescott. So, fun fact. I read into that decades ago, and it just stuck with me. It also does mention 2 years later, the Minutemen were called out for the raid on Danbury, Connecticut, which is interesting because David Wooster was killed in that battle, and yet again, Benedict Arnold was wounded in that battle. And actually, if you've heard the story of Sybil Luddington, was a young woman about 16. Now, her story is called into question often because there's no documentation of it, but allegedly she went on a famous midnight ride that was a lot longer than Paul Revere's, and she also didn't get arrested and helped call out the Minutemen. Yada yada yada. Question number 2. Come through. Wow, you guys are commenting a lot. Wow, I guess Fridays is a good day for live streaming. Now we know. Let's see if I can keep up. I am not a teacher. Nope, we were talking about that. Swag, I can't help being cool, TJ. or Ned. Press 1 if you feel like you're in history class. Well, Bush suck, no comment. Turning from a girlfriend. Yes, Matt. Samuel Prescott was returning from, my understanding is, he went to Lexington to meet with some, he was on the Concord Committee of Correspondence, and he went to meet with Lexington about the Committee of Correspondence and about the powder that was hiding in Concord, and additionally to meet with a fiance. And then as he was leaving at like 1 a.m, there's some strangers on the road, and it just so happens to be Paul Revere and Dawes. So thank you for bringing that up, Matt. Are we ready for question 3? Dun 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 dun. I should probably save the music for while we're waiting. This is why I can't host Jeopardy. Who uttered the words, "I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death"? Now, I'm going to repeat what I said to apparently myself before. These are the questions that make me nervous about doing this. When I usually do a live video or any of my videos, I at least reread an article I wrote in the past just to get it fresh in my mind so I can get through the story accurately and you know, continuity, in chronologically is the word. But this, I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants. Now, as I said, these first 6 questions I already did by myself. But I still am nervous because obviously I know it's Patrick Henry. But my mind is going to want me to say something like Richard Henry Lee, also from Virginia, friendly with Patrick Henry, has Henry in his name. And I'm going to say something like that. And you guys are going to go, no. This guy's a dumb. I knew this guy was a dummy. Unsubscribe. I see a bunch of people answering. I did give it away. Patrick Henry, you're right. Tina and Ned, well played. And let's see. Again, I can't hold it up to the screen because I have lights here so you can see me clearly and it looks like a blank piece of paper. But I assure you, there's an entire article on the back of each one of these cards, which is cool. And I should be clear, it is the Library of Congress. For some reason, you can see this Library of Congress American Revolutionary War quiz pack. I think I got this in Philadelphia when I went there about a decade ago, my first time as an adult going by myself, which was more than a decade ago, because time has elapsed. Now on here, it talks a lot about Patrick Henry and making his name for himself with the Stamp Act. When the Stamp Act was passed in the House of Burgesses in Virginia, saying things like, hey, things like, oh, now that I'm actually live, people are coming in. Hi, everyone. For those of you just showing up, I made a mistake and talked to myself for half an hour, but I'm glad you came in now. The card does say Patrick Henry made his name 1765, passing the Virginia, promoting the Virginia resolutions or resolves, trying to get rid of the Stamp Act, and that's kind of how Henry came to be, and would later fight in the Virginia militia, proving that he would fight for liberty as he said he would. I also called out this card because it says, in 1765, the year the British enacted the hated Stamp Act, he reacted by, and they used the word act 3 times in a sentence. And as someone who writes articles 5 days a week, I'm not the best writer in the whole wide world, but like, you got to put some variety in your words. It's the spice of life. You can't just use the same word. You know, I mean, I know it's Stamp Act, react, enact. They're technically different words. And while I appreciate the rhyme scheme, it's just not for me. Anyway, let's go. Oh, you guys are commenting. We got Patrick Henry. Blah, blah, blah. My Jeopardy rendition. Why? You don't like... I apologize. I grew up on heavier music. I don't know what to tell you. Question number 4. Why did the Revolutionaries invade Canada? And if you want to type this in, good luck. There are several correct answers to this. Excuse me. And when I did it to myself before, for those of you coming in, again, I thought I was live and wasn't for a decent amount of time. And even some of the answers I left out. So this is a really, really difficult one. Why did the Revolutionaries invade Canada? So there are, as I said, a bunch of reasons. Go ahead and type. If I start your answer, it's okay. It counts. There's no prizes. I award you nothing. Although if this works out, we start doing this every week, I can figure out some prizes. That'd be fun. To control Quebec, to bring them into the Union. These are correct answers. Short story long, when one of the major intolerable acts that bothered New England specifically was the Quebec Act, which essentially said, now keep in mind, the French and Indian War was just a little over a decade before the American Revolution, and it was against French Canada, and they were not only French-speaking French people, but Catholics. And when Great Britain and Parliament said, hey, listen, you French Catholics in Canada, as long as you follow British laws, we're going to let you be Catholic. And the still pretty heavily Puritan New England was like, no. No, we don't want Catholics next door. That was why we fought in the war. One of the many reasons that people of New England joined in that war. Of many reasons, not the only reason. Some motorcycle driving by. But as, first of all, people of New England went to the Continental Congress of Philadelphia and met with people in like Philly who didn't feel that same way about Catholics, and people from Maryland who, like, some of them were Catholic because Maryland was a hotspot for Catholics to live safely in, the Western world. So although New England did ease up very quickly, I bring this up because many of the people were saying, hey, the rebels, when I say people, many of the rebels were like, hey, maybe those Catholics, not Catholics, maybe those French Catholics don't necessarily want to be British. Maybe they want to join us. So they sent, over the course of 2 years, 3 letters in French saying, hey, you guys want to come join the revolution? Primarily, British Canada said no. French Canada said no. We already lost a war to the British very recently, and we're not interested in going back to that. Although that being said, there were a few contingents of French Canadians who did fight. As we discussed the other day, Moses Hazen was one of those people. I'm sorry, no, Moses Hazen is on the back of the card. David Salisbury Franks. Either way, another reason they invaded Canada was strategically. They wanted to get, if they could get up through Quebec, they can hold the British off at the river, the St. Lawrence River, as opposed to what ended up happening, holding them off on the Hudson, which, to be fair, the Americans got kind of lucky. Recently, I've been listening to Michael Troy's podcast, the American Revolution podcast, which, listen to it. It's amazing. He's great. Friend of the show. And he's pointed out several times in several episodes that everyone at the time thought taking Ticonderoga was extremely important. Didn't end up being important, but the British did come down and take Ticonderoga, and the Battle of Saratoga ended up being really fortunate that we won that battle because we strategically didn't have Canada. Anyway, I'm gonna get on to the next question, and that's basically what it says. Although the card also says they also wanted to bring Canadian residents in to fight the war with them, but that was easier said than done. It does point out Colonel James Livingston and Colonel Moses Hazen, who put together regiments each, which generally a regiment was, I want to say this right, 10 companies of 100 people each, so generally 1,000 people. So those two dudes led 2,000 Canadians. Let's see. Let's see who's going on here. Nacho's calling people soy boys. Okay. Be called a soy boy myself from time to time. That's what friends are for. The English invading New York. Yes, Matt. Primarily to keep the English from invading New York. Oh, nachos. When am I going to be back on Let's Be Frank? I've been meaning to contact Frank. I've been redoing my whole set. If you saw me on Let's Be Frank, then you know I had some audio troubles. I do have new headphones. I am currently testing out my system, trying to get my setup working because I want to start doing the interviews again with my new setup, which will be a lot better. Because instead of relying on Zoom to make the transitions for me, I can actually control what's going on. And then after that, I am gonna write to Frank and say, you know, you still want me? Either way, next question. Which battle saw colonists fail to heed the advice of Daniel Boone, leading to a devastating defeat in Kentucky? Now, I will say, when I did this by myself before, I did this wrong. I got this question wrong. I will also note that I was never really into military history until I started Founder of the Day, when I realized I needed to learn more about it if I'm going to be writing and now talking about the American Revolution. I need to know a lot more about the war. And over the last 2.5, 3 years, I have put a lot of study into it. That being said, there were lots of battles, and I do not know all of them off the top of my head, including the Battle of Blue Licks, Kentucky. The reason I got tricked by this question is the Battle of Blue Licks, Kentucky was in August of 1782, and that's a year after Yorktown. So the war was essentially won in most people's minds. Though, to be fair, it wouldn't be for another, until 1783, when the peace treaty, technically 1784, the war legally is officially over. So there are skirmishes that are fought. Famously, John Lawrence is now famous because of the play Hamilton. Didn't used to be famous when I read about him for the first time. He dies after the war ends. So it was kind of stupid of me to not consider that. The Battle of Blue Licks takes place in Kentucky. There was a group of British soldiers fighting with Native Americans over there. There was a battle took place. The Americans scared them off, and then it was Caldwell. Captain William Caldwell was leading the force. They got to a river, the Licking River, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, the Licking River, and Daniel Boone was like, I know the Native Americans here. This is a trap. This is a mistake. This is a trap. And he was right. And it didn't end well for the Patriots. Let's see. Nacho, you live in Kentucky. Are you by the Licking River? I sucked at history class, but I love history. I didn't do great in most classes back in high school, so I know what you mean. You don't grow up till you're a grown up is generally my motto. Starting now. I've never said it before. Okay, I'm going to take another sip of this. Like I said, I'm about to catch up to where I was when you guys actually started watching. What hill was the Battle of Bunker Hill fought on? Let me give you a second, because some of you right away are like, got it. And some of you are probably like, Bunker Hill. And that's not precisely what happened. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like I said, I have about a 10-second delay between when I talk and when you guys actually get it. So, excuse me, getting a little stuffy. It was fought on neighboring Breed's Hill. Although there was a little bit of battling on Bunker Hill. And you got it, Matt. I knew you would. So, I'm going to read you a little bit of this for those of you who don't know. While preparing for the battle, 2 Patriot officers, Colonel Israel Putnam and Colonel William Prescott, quarreled over which rise was strategically superior, Bunker or Breed's Hill. Putnam preferred Breed's Hill as it was closer to Boston and put both the city and anchored British ships within cannon range. Prescott defended the merits of Bunker Hill, which rose higher and could be more easily defended. Eventually, Prescott gave in, and the Revolutionaries heavily fortified Breed's Hill overnight, where Bunker Hill received a secondary fortification. The next morning, startled British aboard the vessel Lively spotted the defenses and opened fire, beginning a battle that the British won, but only with heavy casualties. Nacho, I'm not going to wear my mask in my house. All right, dude? I get it. I get it. The president's got it now. We've all got it now. Now, we are 6 questions in and 25 minutes. Great. And we are getting to... Cards are a little sticky. They've been in this thing for 10, 15 years. So, we have caught up to where I already was. So now I don't know the answers anymore. Or, I mean, presumably I know the answers. I have a YouTube channel called Founder of the Day. So that would be prime if I knew the answers. Who wrote regulations for the order and discipline of the troops of the United States, the new country's first military training guide? Interesting. It's strange. The card is like opposite highlighted. So, who wrote the paper titled Regulations for the Order and Discipline of the Troops of the United States? What's strange is you would think that would be in italics or something because it's the title of a paper, but no. The questions are all in bold, but the title of the paper is just not in bold. I don't know if you can you. It's hard to tell, and it's hard for me to hold it straight. But like that's super strange. That's really backwards. But that's fine. 0-6, Nacho. Well, we'll just do these same questions next week. You get them all right. Now, I have a strange feeling. This is a little deceiving because you initially want to say, well, it was probably done right at the beginning of the war, right? 9. It's going to be Baron von Steuben. Drawing on his experience from the Prussian army of Frederick the Great, who we recently talked about, German-born Baron von Steuben outlined this book of military discipline with help from men including Alexander Hamilton. It was translated into English. Yeah, I don't need to know much about Baron von Steuben. Von Steuben's amazing. He was this German dude, probably homosexual, who was kind of forced out of the Prussian army because of his sexuality. And then went to France where he was like, oh, Gay Paris will take me. And then Paris was kind of like, no thanks. And it just so happens that you got Silas Deane over there sending soldiers to America. And he was like, we'll take you. We'll take anyone. And they sent him over. And it's great he did. Because not only did Baron von Steuben write the manual on how to train soldiers, but he actually trained the soldiers with the help of translators. He actually trained the soldiers in how to drill as an actual real life army. Furthermore, he also reorganized camp, including things that seem super obvious today, but he moved the latrines to the opposite side of camp from the kitchens and downhill from the kitchens. So there wasn't duties in their food. I know this sounds super basic, but first of all, they didn't know about germs back then, and I guess they didn't know about how duty went in groundwater. I'm sorry I'm calling it duty. I have very young children. I forgot I'm talking to grown-ups. He was worried about how the poopies would affect the water. Family show, man. Family show. Okay. It also says, another name on here, the Baron knew no English but did speak French, and he drilled often relied on Captain Benjamin Walker, who served as an interpreter. And Walker, if I'm not mistaken, was the one who ended up kind of serving as Steuben's secretary for his entire life, and a good amount of his inheritance was given to him. They may or may not have been life partners. We got stuff coming in. Matt, got Steuben. Tarot, you're here. Welcome. Got Steuben. How did I become good in history? I enjoy it. And I read about it. You can get good at anything if you enjoy it. I honestly believe that. You got to really be a nerd. Lots of research and wanting to know history. Yeah, it's just my desire to know it. Sorry, nachos. Duty just kind of came out. I didn't know what, fecal matter sounds gross. Duty's fun. We're having a good time here. It's Friday. Maybe next week I'll drink a beer. No, maybe not. Then I'll definitely get questions wrong. And I won't say duty. I won't keep it PC. Well, so TJ, it was when I got a little bit older that I really started studying on my own. Like I said earlier, I wasn't necessarily the best student in high school, but I found things I liked as an adult. Oh, don't want to skip it. Okay, next question. Question number, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Question number 8. And I think we're going to do 12 because we're hitting them. Yeah, I think 12 is good because then we'll get 4 weeks out of this deck of cards and I'm having fun and we can chit chat at the end. Which of the original 13 colonies did not wait for the official Declaration of Independence and instead declared its own independence from Britain? That's a good question and arguably a bad question. Now, while you guys are thinking of your answer, Vermont is not one of the original 13 colonies, though Vermont did declare its independence on its own first, not just from Great Britain, from everyone. And it was recognized by absolutely no one until about halfway through the war, where Britain contacted the leaders of Vermont and said, hey, we'll make you a state in Canada if you come over and fight with us. So, but the answer is Virginia. Virginia declared its independence like a few weeks beforehand, and that's when they sent word to Richard Henry Lee to recommend to resolve that these United Colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states at the Continental Congress. Though I do believe, so North Carolina makes a claim. It's not the Halifax Resolves. I'm blanking on the name, but North Carolina does claim to have at least had a county that declared independence. I don't think that's what they're talking about. Virginia, the largest of the 13 colonies, said, all right, we're out of here. See you later. Composed of Crown sanctioned members. By 1619, it had already ventured into the realm of self-governing by creating the House of Burgesses. So, there you go. Virginia. Killing it. Not embarrassed yet. But again, I did get embarrassed by the Battle of Blue Lick. I got that wrong. So, we're not all perfect. Oh, Ned, yeah. It was in, I want to say mid-May. I don't remember the exact date. Mid-May of 1776. Virginia, I think it's the 5th Virginia Convention. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself. I don't remember what I said the first time, but when I was talking to myself. But Virginia had the House of Burgesses, and then essentially they had shadow governments. Once the Revolution began, the committees of safety were revolutionary shadow governments. There's no better way to put it. That took actual power from Great Britain, even though they were not elected. They were just took power because they were the ones who controlled the state militias. And Virginia changed from the House of Burgesses to the Virginia Conventions, which was essentially an assembly or a Congress, but they were called as conventions because they were just meetings of leading citizens. There were 5 of these. The Patrick Henry, Give Me Liberty, Give Me Death, I think was at the second one. And then I believe it was the 5th one that declared independence and sent to Continental Congress, said, Richard Henry Lee, resolve independence. Yeah, super interesting. So let's see. Which state was nicknamed the Crossroads of the Revolutionary War, and why? Oh, I do know it. Okay, got it. I got it. I was like, well, okay, so it's got to be in the middle somewhere, right? Because it's crossing, and it is. Giving you time. Okay, now that we've answered, I think what they're looking for is New Jersey. And why? Well, because it's in the middle, and you had to cross it to get north to south, or south to north, or ocean to west, or west to ocean. And also because in the middle of the war, there was a lot of fighting in New Jersey, especially the Forage War, it's often called, which the Forage War was a part of, I don't want to get the year wrong. I believe it was 77, generally January to March 77, where everyone was in their winter quarters. They were camped out for the winter. There weren't really campaigns or warring, but they needed food to eat, so they would send it out to steal from local farms. The Patriots and the British both did this, and during that time, they got into lots of skirmishes, which generally the New Jersey militias won. In fact, New Jersey and their militias are often overlooked and way underappreciated for their importance to the war, especially in the middle. Like, we talk a lot about the beginning of the war and then some of the big battles and then the end of the war. But, 8 years is a long time for a war to go on. Might not seem that way. I don't talk about modern politics, but we all live in America and we've been at war for a lot longer than that. But 8 years is a very long time. Think about what you were doing 8 years ago. And the answer is New Jersey got its nickname because it had the misfortune of lying between British-held and American-held territories. New York, the Patriots, there was the New Jersey campaign, rife with skirmishes, raids, engagements, and campaigns. More than 200 battles were fought in New Jersey. Wow, I didn't even realize that. That's a lot. And many residents joined militias that harassed them. Battle of Trenton, Battle of Princeton, Battle of Monmouth, crossing of the Delaware. Crossed into New Jersey. And I hope no one's here from New Jersey because I grew up on Long Island and New Jersey smells terrible. To be fair, that was a belief I held as a kid. And now that I live away from the suburbs of New York City, and meet people from Jersey, I realize people from North Jersey, also just grew up in the suburbs of New York City and were exactly the same person. But old habits die hard. Someone left. I'm sorry, they must have been from Jersey. Matt, you got it right again. You're killing it today, dude. Yeah, Tina, yes. The main army spent most of its time in New Jersey. So the Continental Army was generally divided up. There was a northern department that was mostly in New York, but had kind of, when they were in Canada, and then New England, although there wasn't a ton of fighting in New England. And then there was the southern department, which became famous. Horatio Gates lost some major battles, and then Nathaniel Greene ran the Southern Department and essentially won the war. George Washington stayed with the main army, which was usually in New Jersey or Pennsylvania. After they left New York, it was mostly Jersey and Pennsylvania before he went to Yorktown. So you're right that the main body of the army under George Washington's watch was usually in either Jersey or Pennsylvania. Absolutely. Though, as I said, there were divisions. There's also a Western Department, which is super overlooked. Like we just talked about Daniel Boone. The Western Department is almost as overlooked as the Continental Navy for, I'll say, casual history fans. But there's a lot of important fighting out there. Either way, next question. Oh, it's a multiple choice question, which I kind of just answered for you guys. And I sure hope you guys know this. It's the one of the things every American should know. What was the significance of the Battle of Yorktown? I honestly don't even want to give you the multiple choice questions. But I will as you answer correctly. A. The Battle of Yorktown marked the end, more or less, of the American Revolutionary War. B. It marked the first Patriot defeat. C. It marked the first significant Patriot victory. D. It was a stunning victory over the famous Patriot Navy. None of you have answered, and I'm assuming that's either because the answer is obvious or because I made you feel embarrassed by saying it should be obvious, and I apologize if that's the case. It marked, more or less, as it says here, the end of the Revolutionary War. The Battle of Yorktown was the victory at Yorktown. We defeated Cornwallis. The Americans defeated the might of the British Empire. Though the war did not actually end yet, as I said, there were many skirmishes afterwards. It was, for all intents and purposes, yeah, it was. So how many questions is that? Let's see. We're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so we'll do 2 more, and we'll be a quarter of the way through, and then we'll see if you guys want to hang out and do more or whatnot. I've finished my coffee. I'm onto the water. In what region of the United States did most battles in the second half of the war take place? Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. And again, we're at questions I have not read the answers to yet. So, in what region of the United States did most battles in the second half of the war? So, I'm assuming the second half of the war, they mean, but 1775 until Yorktown in 1781. So that's 6 years, which means from 1779, 80, 81. Matt, you're going with the South. Interesting. That's my initial thought, because Cornwall, because they sailed down, they took Georgia easily, then they conquered, they took Charleston, and then Nathaniel Greene showed up after Camden, which I believe counts as the second half of the war. It's got to be the South, right? Justin, hi, just want to stop by and say thanks for your content. Could you do a video on the Scottish roots within the Revolutionary War? There's a link between Touch Not This Cat and Don't Tread on Me. Interesting. I've never heard the term touch not this cat, but I can imagine what you're referencing. I will definitely look up the Scottish roots. There are many, and I'm sorry to divide, but I'm answering you guys' questions. We're having fun here. There are many. The Scots-Irish have roots in all sorts of places. Actually, there's an interesting book that I think is behind me, or maybe downstairs. Wait, be patient. Be patient. It is about John Stark. And it is right here, Stark. Okay, so I got this book when I was in New Hampshire. Oh man, it's hard to read. Oh, okay, I'll put it as close as I can. Stark. It's called Stark: The Life and Wars of John Stark. It's about John Stark, who I don't even know if I've written an article about yet. I got this when I was visiting New Hampshire in Exeter, his Museum of the American Revolution, and it talks a good amount about the Scots-Irish in New Hampshire. But yes, Matthew, also in the North Carolina Highlands, also in the backwoods of South Carolina and parts of Virginia, there is an amazingly important amount of people. The reason I bring this book up is it talks about it specifically in New Hampshire. To be fair, this isn't like necessarily my favorite book in the whole world. It's very military history heavy, and it's two parts. The first part is French and Indian War, and the second part is American Revolutionary War. And the American, I learned a lot more about the French and Indian War than I was expecting in this book. So it's pretty good. Not, like I said, not the best in the world, but he's a great guy. John Stark's you hear live free or die, New Hampshire's motto, is something he said as an old man in a letter. So I do want to point that out. I don't have a link in the description, so go to my website and click on one of my links to Amazon and then buy it, so I at least get credit. Does not change your price. Did I have something in my beard? Did I spill water in my beard? My bad. If you buy through my affiliate links, it doesn't change your price. It just, Amazon pays me a little bit, like 30 cents a book. And on October 19th, it will have been 239 years since the surrender of Yorktown. That's right. Thank you, Grace. You know what's really interesting is we are coming up on a bunch of really fun anniversaries. So Kyle Jenks, who I've interviewed recently, who is the James Madison portrayer, he mentioned that a lot of the things from the Constitution are hitting their 230th anniversary soon. I believe the Bill of Rights is coming up next year on its 230th, but we are starting to hit 250th, a quarter of a millennia for many events. Right now, it's 250 years after, and I can't do the math off the top of my head. Okay, 2020 minus 200 is 1820, minus 50 is... wait. 70. So right now we are 250 years after 1770. So 4 years from now, it's 250 years from the First Continental Congress. 2 years after that, a year after that, war starts. That and that and that. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it. I appreciate all your support. So anyway, back to the questions. In what region did it take place? Yeah, it's the South. It's got to be the South. The South, lowercase. No, South is capital. You guys both capitalize. Although it's the first word in your sentence, it might have automatically happened. But I like to capitalize nouns of that nature because we're talking about the South. It's a place, particular. Anyway, enough for my punctuation grievances. Following the Battle of Lexington and Concord in Massachusetts that opened the war, the conflict continued to be centered in the North, particularly around the British stronghold of New York City and the colonist base of Philadelphia. Although I would not consider that the North, I'd consider that the Mid-Atlantic, but that's just me being a jerk about it. Most battles in the second half of the war were fought in the southern colonies, with major actions taking place in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, the colony where the most Americans died in battle, and Georgia. That's extremely interesting. I did not realize that South Carolina was the colony where the most Americans died in battle. As we were discussing before, New Jersey had 200 battles and was a huge part of the war. I would have assumed it was Jersey. And that's why we're here. We're all learning together. As I like to say, I'm a student of the Revolution, and I just learn a bunch of stuff every day and tell you about it. Thanks for coming with me. In 1778, after some disappointing setbacks in the North, including the Battle of Saratoga, the British moved fighting south, hoping to capitalize on the large number of loyalists living in those areas, especially Georgia. Doesn't say that, that's me. The first battle of the Southern Campaign in December 1778, the British succeeded in capturing Saratoga. In 1780, the British also firmly controlled Charleston. Battles continued to rage until George Washington finally decided to move to Yorktown. Whammy. Yeah, thanks, Justin. Don't count your chickens. I don't count my chickens anymore. We've had some fox problems. And that's funny because it's true. I actually don't have any chickens anymore. We are going to get more. But first, now that my son has been feeding the cats for a few weeks, he's going to get a fish soon. And then we'll get some more chickens back. And we have to learn how to kill snakes. In what? Okay, next question. In what country was the famous Liberty Bell made? Whoa! In what country was the Liberty Bell made? Oh, I'm going to take a sip of water while you guys think of your answer. This is a tough question. Because just the question itself implies not the United States. And even if it was made when the states were a colony, that's kind of a cop-out. Now that you guys are putting your answers in, I am going to say, I'm going to say England. It might be Ireland, but it was all Great Britain. But I don't want to say Great Britain. I honestly don't know. One of the most famous symbols of the American freedom and independence, the original Liberty Bell was cast in London, England, after an order for an enormous bell weighing more than 2,000 pounds was placed by the Pennsylvania Assembly. The bell was intended to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Charter of Privileges, a governing document of Pennsylvania drawn up by William Penn. In honor of the charter, the bell was inscribed with a quotation from the Bible's book of Leviticus. Quote, "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof." End quote, which would later inspire the name Liberty Bell. After arriving in Pennsylvania in 1752, the bell promptly cracked upon the first testing, foreshadowing upcoming conflicts between Great Britain and the colonies. Instead of being sent back to England, the bell was recast locally, twice. During the Revolution, it was removed from the steeple of the State House and hidden when the British occupied Philadelphia in 1777 and 1778. Very interesting. I'm realizing now, I guess I did not know that much about the Liberty Bell. I knew it was there. Now, how many questions have we done? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're a quarter of the way through. Still 9 of you guys hanging out here. What do you think? I don't know what time it is for you. It's late for some of us on the East Coast, but it's Friday night. Should we do a few more? You want to go through, or are you guys done? You want to hang out for a few minutes? And Tarot, I see you getting it right. Yeah, Ned, so you said we rule out England. And guys, let me know if you want to do more questions or whatnot. I would have ruled out England too, except it's weird. It's a weird question because technically we were Great Britain. Philadelphia was Great Britain in 1752, well before the American Revolution. So, should have used a Paul Revere bell. Well, Paul Revere, to my understanding, didn't get into bell making until after the war was completed in the early 1790s. Paul Revere is a fascinating character. Paul Revere doesn't get a lot of credit for being a major proponent of establishing the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was already kind of in the works. The Enlightenment was ending and Industrial Revolution was beginning just as the Revolutionary War was taking place and the Constitution being written and all that. And Paul Revere actually ends up taking his silversmith foundry and building it, and not only hiring his sons, but first of all, he hires several people. Instead of just hiring other artisans to work, he actually hires them to his company, which was new. And he casted parts. He makes casts for the metal so that he can make parts to the things he's building, and they can be interchangeable and replaced. It wasn't perfect at that point, but that's where he was going. And the things he started doing in the 1790s ended up being what the industrialization essentially was. So he doesn't get a lot of credit for that. France, no, not France. I guess I don't wish it was France. Doesn't matter. Well, listen, we've been doing this almost an hour. Plus, I did half an hour beforehand. I think we're going to call it for the night. If you guys have any more questions or anything else you want to chat shit about, I'm here for it. Was the bell made of bronze? I don't know. Does it? For an order, the bell was intended to. It does not say. I'll tell you what. Let's Google it. We got Google here. This is America. What was the Liberty Bell made of? I would think it was bronze. Yes, very much bronze. It very specifically says bronze. And then it says it's 70% copper, 25% tin, and contains small amounts of lead, gold, arsenic, silver, and zinc. From Liberty Bell Independence National Historic Park. So that's the official Liberty Bell authority, would be my understanding. I don't know a lot about metallurgy. Apparently, if it's 70% copper and 25% tin, that's how you make bronze. Now we know. We're learning a lot of stuff tonight. I guess maybe this was a good idea. Maybe playing games was a good idea. I also don't know how far ahead of you guys I am. Is it cold up there, Tina? It's starting to get a little bit chilly. My hair's messed up because I had my beanie on all day. For those longtime viewers, you'll know last winter I wore a beanie almost every day because that's how I live my regular life. I like to wear my hat. And I'm warm and cozy. I don't know if I'm going to do it again. It doesn't look like professional. I always wear the collars. So I don't know if I'm going to bring the hats back or not. Let me know in the comments if you like my hats or not. I feel safe in them. I will also say that as far as cold, it's gotten chilly outside. I started wearing a hoodie at night, but I have not started a fire in my fireplace yet. There were a few mornings we've turned on the heat to get the house back up to steam. But no, I wouldn't say it's cold. I live outside Syracuse, New York, and most people don't realize this, but just north of me, about half an hour north of me, and from there up to Canada, gets the most snow in America every year, including Alaska, because it's so cold and we get the precipitation. So if you want to learn something new about New York, New York gets usually the most snow in the United States. It sounds crazy. So 50 degrees, throw on a hoodie, not cold. 32 degrees, it's chilly. And mind you, I did move north. I like the snow. I'm a hockey fan. And I also get to sequester myself all winter, stay home, save money, and build a fire. You like the hat, Tara? Thank you. Good. Now, I have a bunch of these hats. This one doesn't necessarily match my outfit. Tina, found your YouTube trying to research paper for college class. I wish I could conversate with history the way you do. My passion for history started at a late age, a late bloomer. Well, I've only started the channel a year ago, and if you're taking college classes, unless you're an older person going back to school, no, you're finding it when I found it. I found the American Revolution like I always liked history. I went to Williamsburg as a kid and absolutely loved it. My mom and I always like bored my dad and sister and brother with museums and everything because we take our sweet time. But it wasn't until I was in college and I actually went to school for music industry, and for a variety of reasons, including finding the Declaration of Independence and like actually taking the time to read it. It sounds like really weird, but like I said, no one even we talk about it. No one like has anyone read this? I was also didn't really get into politics, modern politics, until I was like, heading into college and met people talking about issues, and I read the Declaration, which I had never really done before, and I was like fascinated with it. Just those first three paragraphs. And then I took a bunch of history classes and read a few books, including, Tina, if you want to get into it, Founding Brothers. This is the book. If you want to learn about the founders, this is where you start. It is a winner of a Pulitzer Prize, one of two that Joseph J. Ellis won. It talks about, I think it's 6 or 7 events. 6 events. The duel, the dinner, the silence, the farewell, the collaborators, the friendship. And it talks about relationships between founders. Now, it focuses on what I like to call the big 6. Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Franklin, Madison, Hamilton. But it talks about their relations, and it's super important for a firm understanding. And it's an easy read. It's the easiest read in the whole wide world. And I read that over a summer as a music student, and at the same time registered for some history classes the following year. And what do you know? I go into an American Revolution 101 class, and this is one of the 4 books that I was supposed to get. And I had already just read it. And I kind of fell in love with it there. I took several classes about a wide variety of history that year. But then the semester after that, I took a class called Jeffersonian Democracy with Dr. Beale. And Jeffersonian Democracy opened me up to the idea of like, look at all these, what are all these other names on the Declaration of Independence? And actually, the final project for that class was find a founder that you don't think anyone knows anything about, write an essay, and then give a presentation to the class. And I looked at the Declaration and the Constitution, and I realized there's a few names on both of these. And then I looked at the Articles of Confederation and went, whoa, there's, I think, 2 names on all 3 of these. And then I looked at the Continental Association, which was the original after the First Continental Congress, also known as the Articles of Association. It was the, among other things, the boycott that was agreed to after the First Continental Congress. And there was one name on all 4 of those documents, Roger Sherman. So I wrote about him. I studied him and wrote about him. And actually, my prized possession, I don't have it out. I have it. I don't want it to get hit by too much sunlight. But my prized possession is an autograph of Roger Sherman that my parents got me when I graduated, because finding the American Revolution changed my life in so many ways. And that's why I started this channel. I mean, because I'm talking, 20 years ago, I was in school. I know. I look like I look very boyish, but I'm not. Well, not with the beard. I don't. Part of the reason I grew it. Because I wanted to. Okay, a bunch of comments coming in. First industrial city in the U.S. was Paterson, New Jersey, founded by the SUM, headed by Alexander Hamilton, which put the Industrial Revolution footing in the New World. The Society of Establishing Useful Manufacturers. Interesting. How much time do I spend reading? Okay, well, first I'm going to go and answer the Society for Useful Manufacturers issue. Another gentleman who was a part of forming this society and worked very closely with Alexander Hamilton was a guy named Tench Coxe. I think his name is pronounced Coxe. It's Coxe. I used to say Cox. I made a video about him a while back and got chastised for pronouncing it wrong. I think his name is Coxe. Tench Coxe. Tench is a name several people had back then as a first name. My wife would not let me name one of my children Tench. I love that name. Either way, Tench Coxe, the year before the Constitutional Convention, he was one of the people who went to the Annapolis Convention in Maryland that resolved to have the Constitutional Convention, essentially. Although Tench Coxe was not also sent to the Constitutional Convention. He was a young man who, like many wealthy people in Philadelphia during the Revolution, didn't really take a side and was criticized and almost arrested by the Patriots and then almost arrested by the British when they took over Philly. But no one really knew where he stood. And then after the war was, since he came from a wealthy family and was very, very smart, well, they needed him to help make America wealthy. At least that was Alexander Hamilton's point of view, and he was very friendly with Tench Coxe. So the day before the first meeting of what they called the Philadelphia Convention, but what we know as the Constitutional Convention, there was a meeting had in Philadelphia. And at the time, pretty much the only delegates there were Virginians and Pennsylvanians. And Tench Coxe gave this speech about, among other things, manufacturers in the United States and how they needed to improve the government under the Articles of Confederation in such a way that it could not only stimulate the economy, but could stimulate manufacturing itself. Notably in it, and I can't remember the name of the speech. I'll bring it up. Okay, where's my stuff? While I'm talking, I will bring it up. Coxe. But I found it super interesting. He actually brings up steam power as something that the federal government should help invest in. And my article I wrote about him, I called him the first American economist, because he doesn't go to the Constitutional Convention, but he joins Alexander Hamilton right off the bat as soon as Hamilton becomes treasurer. May 11th, 1787. He gave a speech that was later published called A Commercial System for the United States. He did discuss things, the need to control trade and produce goods internally, increase manufacturing using water and steam power, the need for taxation, and the restoration of public credit. And again, this speech was given to the delegates who were elected to attend the Continental Congress the very next day. When Hamilton became Secretary of the Treasury, he appointed Tench Coxe as the first Assistant Secretary of the Treasury. And while Hamilton gets all this credit for building the United States Treasury system, and rightfully so, I mean, Alexander Hamilton, like him or not, was a brilliant mathematician and economist in his mind. One of the reasons it's very hard for people like me to learn about the Hamilton's financial plan and explain it to other people is it was very difficult for the other American founders to understand Hamilton's financial plan. I've said this in a bunch of videos recently because I've been reading a book that is downstairs called Jefferson's Treasure about Albert Gallatin, who was Thomas Jefferson's Secretary of the Treasury, who got that position because he's one of the few people who actually understood what Hamilton was talking about. The thing is, it was only partially Hamilton's plan. In fact, seems to have been Tench Coxe's plan. But Hamilton was the face. Hamilton was the one Washington trusted. Hamilton was friendly at that time with Madison, and Hamilton was the one who could explain it to other people better. So Tench Coxe is one of these extraordinarily influential young men at the establishment of the United States who is essentially anonymous today. But we were talking about the Industrial Revolution earlier. Tench Coxe would be part of the Society for Establishing Useful Manufactures, I believe. I'm 99% sure. Because he was the one whose plan was to establish manufacturers. And he was one of these visionaries, like Paul Revere would be a few years later. He was one of these visionaries who saw the Industrial Revolution approaching. He saw that they were starting to use steam power to pump water out of mines, and that there was a lot more that you could do with that. And I mean, it's the children of these people are the ones who have steam trains running across the United States. Literally, they're children. So the fact that he saw this was amazingly important. Another question, veering off. Tina, how much time do I spend reading? So, reading books, not nearly as much as I used to. Because I am not only making this channel, but this channel is largely based off a website I have called founderoftheday.com, if you're interested. I just passed the 1 year anniversary for the YouTube channel, but I'm over 2.5 years of publishing. The first 2 years were daily articles, 7 days a week. I would read, research, and write an article every day. Now I just do it 5 days a week, and on Saturday and Sunday I just draw from my uh, uh, almost 900 articles I've written in the last 200 years. Uh, and because of that, I find myself reading a lot more primary resources than books. Um, most of which is on Founders Online, which, if you're not familiar, the National Archives has a segment on its website called Founders Online, where there's almost 200,000 documents and letters and papers and correspondence of American founders that you can Google and read through. And I would not be able to be doing what I'm doing without it at all. But that being said, skimming through these primary resources in 17th century language, or I should say 18th century language, I'm sorry, I don't get a lot of time to read books. So I'm already a slow reader because I like to get through a sentence and think about it and pontificate on it, if you will. And then it takes me now forever. That's why I'm thinking about, at least maybe for the Patreon crew, doing like a book of the month, because I know it takes me a while to read through things. Other people, I'm sure, read slowly like I do too, and especially nowadays where it's so hard to find time to read or find time to do anything. It seems like a month is a good amount of time to get through. Maybe a chapter every 2 or 3 days. So let me know if that's something you like. I know TJ and Matthew are here. Thank you for being patriots on Patreon. If you guys are here watching this right now, watch me talk, you want to help out, support, offset some of these costs. I bought the new microphone, new camera, new lights, new monitor. It's all coming out of my pocket. So thank you 1,000 times to the people who are helping me pay off those costs. If you want to help support the channel, check out my Patreon page. There is a link below. $5 a month is my fee, and I put out a whole bunch of stuff. A lot of the behind the scenes stuff for Founder of the Day I put out there. I have been slow the last week and a half. I had both of my children were born within a week of each other, just a few years apart. So it's been a lot of birthdays and everything. Anyway, enough about me. Thank you, TJ. You're the best. Thank you so much. Like on Poldark. Matt, I don't know what Poldark is, or if that's a misprint. Grace, wow, I recognize Cokes' name, just didn't know how much about him. We'll need to dig into him more as I'm working on a historical fiction novel. Interesting. What's it about? If you need, feel free to email me or Facebook or Twitter. I can't talk. It's getting late. Feel free to get at me in any fashion. I'd be happy to offer any help I can. But Tench Cokes is an amazingly important, super underrated founder. So if you are writing anything about Hamilton or anything like that, other people you might be interested in, Troy, hey, welcome. Yes, primary sources are the best when you can access them. And yeah, whether or not you like a big government or a small one, and whether or not you think we should be spending public money on things like the Library of Congress, they have certainly done something right, and it is the Founders Online. And they are always adding new things. In fact, a lot, I'll stumble onto things that are like, because not only do they have new things, but they have like these footnotes that go deep into people's lives. It's so extraordinarily helpful. I recommend it to everyone. Grace, yeah, Founders Online, it's where it's at. So if you're looking into Tench Cokes, you want to learn more about like the establishment of the economy. Some other names you want to look into are like Nicholas Evely, I think it's pronounced. EV. I'll bring it up because I don't remember how it's. I don't even remember how it's spelled. I think it's EVIELGH. Nicholas. I'm just gonna type in Nicholas. No, my own website, and also Oliver Wolcott Jr. Oliver Wolcott was an important founder, I believe, a signer of the Declaration, and important military leader for Connecticut's militia. But his son, Oliver Wolcott Jr., ends up becoming important. Hamilton and Cokes basically have this like clique of founders that helped them launch the Treasury Plan. Nicholas Evely, EVELEIGH. It might be pronounced Evely or Evely. I don't know. problem with writing these articles is I run into so many names over and over again for like years, and then I write about them, and I've never heard anyone say them out loud to me. So this is how they are in my mind. Like the name Silas. Silas Dean is an amazingly important founder when it comes to foreign policy earlier in the war. But I was reading the word Silas. I thought it was made an E sound in that name. I read Silas for so many years that I actually, when we had our first kid, I was like, well, what do you think of the name Silas? And my wife was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, Silas? I'm like, yeah, maybe. She's like, that's what Justin Timberlake named his kid. And I was like, no. Not that there's anything wrong with Justin Timberlake. I just was trying to avoid names that might be too popular. Searching around if almost daily. Yeah, well, I am on it daily. Although I started writing articles only on Monday through Friday, or publishing articles Monday through Friday, so I can take a few days off from Founders Online and, get things done around the house. 7 days a week was a big undertaking. I mean, but I love it. I love every second of it. To be totally transparent, one of the main reasons I started this was not just my father gave me trouble for not being a teacher and keeping this information to myself. He called me selfish. So to pass it on, but also more selfishly, now I have to, like, every single day say, okay, it's the end of the day. We had dinner. I need to go do some work and read about the American Revolution for an hour or two, and then write an article about what I learned. So it's a lot of fun for me. If you guys have any more questions, so I guess we're not going to do the cards anymore because now we are well over an hour. So remind me next week. I'm going to put the faces of the cards together. I guess I'll figure that out when I take it out of the box next week. But I'm happy to keep chatting here as long as you want. But, do another 6 questions would take probably another hour. But that's great because 6 questions a week, we can do this if you guys like it. There's a lot more people hanging out and commenting than we usually have on Wednesdays for the live video. So if you guys want to hang out and do this every week, I am totally down with that. And that'll give us 8 weeks in just this one pack of cards. If I can get them back in. But I can't. Okay. There's no. Evile? Grace, is it Evie League? Ivy League? I don't know. I am going to throw this out while you guys are here. I see there's 7 likes. If you guys want to hit like if we can get that up to 10, that would be astounding. So if you guys can hit a like, because the more you hit like, the more YouTube says, oh, people actually like this. So next week they'll advertise it to total strangers who might come hang out and join this cool little community that's suddenly starting. I mean, I know a few of you started hanging out. Thank you for the like. Got another one. Thanks, guys. A few of you have started coming around when I first started doing the Wednesday live videos. And I've seen every single name that's commenting I have seen over the last several months, but it's really cool that you're all here right now. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I do have to learn to look at the camera, even though the questions are over here. The comments are all the way over here. Still figuring out how to be on YouTube. Not doing a great job. Grace, you've run into some out there names. Hey, the American Revolution. Oh, 9 likes. Hey, one more person hit like, and we'll have 10, and it will be the joy of my life. There it is, 10. Whoa, we did it. We did it. Thanks, guys. That's really cool. I guess I am figuring out YouTube. And now I'm super hot because my hat's on and pumped that I have 10 likes. Which I will say, for the videos I release that are not live, they I usually get around 10, maybe 15, and a good amount of views, but I've never watched it happen. You guys are amazing. But there are some amazing names. The American Revolution has some of my favorite names. Return Jonathan Meigs. A gentleman named Return John. I'll tell a quick story. The name Return Jonathan Meigs, I forget exactly where he's from. I believe Connecticut. But he was part of the Continental Army, and he led the raid on Sag Harbor, which is on Long Island. It's far enough away from New York City that who won the game? I won the game. No, we did 12. I said 6 before, so it'll only get us through 4 weeks. I got 11 out of 12. I guess we should go back. I'll be honest. I think Matthew won the game because he answered the most times, and every time he answered was right. Shows 11 likes now. Great, thanks, TJ. You know what's weird is sometimes like YouTube doesn't update me appropriately here. I don't know. YouTube's strange, man. Either way, return Jonathan Meigs. His most notable battle thing in the American Revolution was the raid on Sag Harbor, which was out in the forks of Long Island. If you look at a picture of a map of Long Island, looks kind of like a fish. It's got the two forks at the end, and in the middle there was Sag Harbor. The British were storing ships there. He led an important raid there that was very successful and scared the British to actually guard that port. He would later go on to be important in founding. He was one of the associators for the Ohio Company and helped found Marietta, Ohio, which was the first American town in the Northwest Territory. But his name apparently was Return Jonathan Meigs because his father's name was Jonathan Meigs, and his father was courting his mother years earlier, of course, and his mother said, "No, I won't marry you." And he did something that was impressive and got on his horse and started running away. And the mother changed her mind and ran after him. Again, the father's name is Jonathan Meigs, and she was saying, "Return, return, Jonathan Meigs, return, Jonathan Meigs." And he went back and she said, "I will marry you." And then they had their first child, and they thought it was funny to name their kid Return Jonathan Meigs. And he also had a son, Return Jonathan Meigs Jr. This was 11. Who won the game? I owe him a donut. Last time you said, did I say the winner gets a donut? Well, that will be hard to deliver. I don't exactly know how to send donuts through the mail. But I'll tell you what, since so many people showed up, I didn't know what to expect, but there have been a ton of people coming through. I don't know what it is, but next week I will come up with something to send to the winner. And I will keep better track of who actually answers and gets it right. If you want, that'll be a lot of fun. And I will send a prize out. That is something people do on YouTube. I'll be happy to participate in that. So I'll come with something over the next week, probably like next Wednesday or Thursday, and the live video on Wednesday. By the way, guys, I do have a live video on Wednesday where I talk about the last, 5 articles I've written and last 7 founders of the day for the whole previous week. So if you like this, 8:15 on Wednesdays, awesome. But I will do something. Time to make some more cracker bread. The raid was well planned and executed, not so common at the time. Oh, Troy, you're talking about Sag Harbor. Yeah, it was extraordinary. There was a very few amount of people. They sailed down on whaleboats essentially, as was common, sailing from Connecticut to Long Island. If I'm getting this right, again, new to being a military historian, but I believe they carried. No, they didn't. They left some men behind with the boats and seem to have gone on foot. I'm getting him twisted with another guy right now who I read about when I wrote an article about Return Jonathan Meigs like maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and I read about someone else from Sag Harbor, and now I'm confusing their life stories. Time to make some more cracker bread. I'm a little lost as to what you're referencing with the cracker bread, TJ. Because I don't make a lot of bread. I want to. A little about me. My spouse and I, again, relocated from the suburbs of New York City a few years back to outside Syracuse in central New York, and we are trying to establish a homestead here to be as self-reliant as possible. I want to be a human, like President Jefferson recommended. Although I know that'll never be accomplished exactly, I am trying to learn how to do things like cook and bake, but I'm not good at it. I am really bad at it. I have grown a lot of squash. I didn't realize how easy it was to grow squash. And next year I plant 1 squash plant, which will give me more than I can eat, instead of, 6 squash plants. Well, 6 acorn squash, and then 6 zucchini is technically a squash, and 6 yellow squash, and then 6 What are they? Not butternut. Yeah, butternut. I planted way too much squash. Anyway, comments coming in. Good, good, good. He is talking about the bread you made for the Patriots. Wrong name, but I can't remember what you called it. I made the video. I made a video about bread for the Patriots. Sorry for the radio silence here. I'll sip my water. They'll give me an excuse to think for a second. What did I can't I can't. Do you remember what founder it was I was talking about? Bread. I made the bread for the Patriots? Or I was talking about someone else who made bread for Patriots? Like the football team? I'm not going to tell you what team I'm a fan of because I don't want to lose subscribers, but I am not, sorry to say, a Patriots fan. Though I do have a deep appreciation for Tom Brady. Oh, on Patreon. Oh, the Patriots. So I spell it with an E on Patreon. My Patreon supporters are Patriots with an E because Patreon spelled with an E, and I thought that was clever. Oh, you're talking about oh, dude, the cakes, the ash cakes. So what they're referencing in the corner is when I first made a Patreon account, I said if we can get $50 a month, I will make ash cakes, which I actually learned from. If you're interested in the 18th century, there's a channel called James Townsend and Sons, but it's JAS period, or I think on YouTube it's called Townsend's, and he does a thing called 18th century cooking, where they make videos about cooking in the 18th century. Now that channel's grown a lot; it's been around like a decade, and they have kind of expanded. They've built like an 18th century cabin, and they sell on their website like clothing and stuff like that. Yes, spell check gets me every time too. So I made ash cakes, and ash cakes are when you essentially take um, flour and put it in water and pat it together and put it in a fire and let it cook for a little bit and then eat it. And surprisingly, it tasted like soft pretzels. It was actually very good. I put a little salt on it, which is acceptable because some of the luckier soldiers would have had some salt in their pocket. You know what I actually was considering doing over on Patreon? If you guys want to sign up to my Patreon page, that would be super helpful. Again, I'm spending a lot more than I take in for Founder of the Day over the last 2.5 years. Not that I'm complaining, I love doing it, but if you want to help out, that would be amazing. I'm thinking about doing something else I saw on that channel where he was talking about soldiers would have to make do with what they found. And as I was just saying, I have so many squashes. What they found, I don't remember if he used a pumpkin or a squash, but he essentially showed how to steal a pumpkin from a farmer and just cook it in a fire. So I might do. No, what he did, I think it was a pumpkin. He cut in half, and he cut up some pear, and he put pears, which would also be blossoming in most parts of the East at this time of year. And he cut open the pumpkin, pulled out the guts, put pear in there with some cinnamon, closed it up, and just, again, like the ash cakes, put it in a fire, and it cooked, and then he ate it. That looks tasty. I'm more of a salt person than a sweet person, but I'll give it a shot. TJ, my son, is cute, and not just in that video, but in all the life. But thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Both my sons are cute, although the 1-year-old is sleeping next door. So I will not, even though he can't speak yet, I will not say what I'm thinking. But I'll put it like this. My mom says he reminds her of me. And I was hard to deal with for a while there. Troy, J. Plum Martin's memoirs always mention they had little food. J. Plum Martin is a founder I have not written about yet. I want to. I have not been able to figure out how to attack J. Plum Martin. For those of you who don't know, J. Plum Martin was from the Northeast, I think New Hampshire, fought in the war, and later on wrote a book that is considered an important primary resource. Although, again, I haven't done a lot of research on J. Plum Martin. but it's my understanding that some of the things in there may have been meant for publication. I'll say emphasized when they weren't untrue, but weren't necessarily as important as he made him sound. He wanted to make himself famous, is what I'm getting at. It seems to be the thing. He's from Connecticut. Joseph Martin was from Connecticut. Thank you, Matthew. Did he move to New Hampshire? Again, I have not put a lot of study into Martin in particular. Which is why I haven't written about him yet. After I write about him, I'll know, presumably, everything there is to know. I got a little turned around. Oh, but as for there was very little food, he was right about that. Generally, the Continental Army had a lot of trouble getting food. Famously, the Continental Army had a lot of trouble getting anything because they kept writing to the Continental Congress saying, we need money for things. And the Continental Congress saying, we gave you all our money. What do you want from us? That's all we can do. Grace, I find it a fun quirk that so many people were named Junior in the 18th century. Do you mean like name Junior? Excuse me. A little stuffy. Grace, if you mean like as in Oliver Wolcott Jr., things of that nature, I actually learned recently from J.L. Bell, who's an author who I hope to get on once I start doing the interviews again, once I figure everything out. If you guys are on Twitter, I hate Twitter. I hate most of social media. I'm on there because fan of the day. But I shouldn't say hate. It's just not for me. There's a lot of anger there I don't appreciate. But on Twitter, the American Revolution community is actually very cool and helpful and informative. And there's not a lot of anger. But either way, J.L. Bell is Twitter's American Revolution authority in so many words. And he was pointing out to me and a few other people that at the time, Junior was added when you were younger to distinguish you from your father, but it would change. So I think we were talking about James Otis, was technically James Otis Jr. And his father, when James Otis Jr. was born, became James Otis Sr. But then when James Otis died, his father was still alive. And he became James Otis Jr. again. Because there was three of them. It was the grandfather, father. So the junior and senior would get thrown around kind of I shouldn't say cavalierly, but it changed hands quite often. Forrest Gump of the American Revolution. Oh, Troy, are you referencing Martin? I'm going to assume you are. Yes, he did move. Thank you, Matt. Trail Valley Forge is named. I did not know there was a J.P. Martin Valley Forge. Grace. Huh. Oh, was that like a huh? Like, oh, okay. Or a huh? He bells Matt. Yeah. Oh, Matt. Yeah. J Bells. His blog is great too. That's a great point. I should have mentioned that. Strangely, I didn't know of his blog when I started mine. I probably should have done more research, but there's a lot of space for writing about the American Revolution. Yeah. So J.O. Bell, from what I read on him, he usually focuses on like kind of one article. While I'm more like a founder at large or a story in general. But yeah, he's also been doing a lot longer than me. So he's found his way. He's waded deeper into the Rev more than I have. Or AmRev, hashtag AmRev. what the cool kids are saying, I suppose. I mean, if there are any more questions, I can talk about the American Revolution for hours and hours. We are at an hour and a half, though. Apparently, Friday nights are the way to do it. I'm glad we tried this. Because, I mean, at least what YouTube's telling me right now is there's 9 of you watching, and that is a million from my perspective. So thank you guys so much. I guess we'll call it. Unless you have more questions, I'm here for you. I feel like I've been looking this way the whole time instead of at the camera, which is not what I'm supposed to do, but I'm reading your comments. I don't want to miss anything. I suppose I should figure out how to get the comments over here, but I moved the pages over here so I can read when I'm doing a founder of the day. I can have the article posted up here and I can just glance at it real quick because Yes, Matt, at Boston 1775. You're saying is JL Bell? Is that it? I think so. I'll pull up Twitter. Come on. What are we doing here? Pull it up. He's always at the top of my stuff because he's always tweeting things that Twitter wants to tell me about. JL Bell. Yes, at Boston 1775. He has a capital B, but I don't think that matters. TJ, you're out. Have a good weekend. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, for coming and hanging out. This was amazing. I hope you have a great weekend. Uh, and I mean, what time is it there? It's like 7 o'clock. Oh, you got your whole night ahead of you. It's past my bedtime. That's not true. I'm kind of a night person, but I understand it is past most people's bedtime. Matt, you made it. But it's Friday. I guess Friday works out better. I'm always open to whatever recommendations you guys have, or comments or criticisms. So if you are, I don't think we should move the Wednesday night one till today. We usually, Wednesday's pretty good. We start 8:15, and I can usually wrap it up before 9:15. And I think that's a nice little habit to develop. This is fun though. I just scratched myself. That hurt. I went to rub my nose and really hurt myself. I'm okay. I'm not crying. You're crying. Oh, I'm crying. But I hope you guys like the card game. 719. Yeah, you got. Yeah. Lauren, not tonight, of course, but I'd love you to touch on sailors' tattoos during the Revolution. Well, Lauren, thank you for. It's the first time I've seen your name. Thank you so much for commenting. I would love to respond to your comment. Actually, hold on. I got right in my book, or I'm going to forget. And Matthew, I have not had time to look into your questions from Wednesday. I am going to look into them. Lauren, I am going to write down tattoos. It's a pretty easy one. And then, what was the other question? Oh, someone said something about religion. I should have written down whose name it was. If you're still here, let me know your name. I apologize. Faith for the, big founders. Yeah, tattoos. That is a good idea. I don't know a lot about it. And see, this is what's fun for me is I actually like learning new things instead of just rehashing old things I know. I like to learn new things. Like I went on a Tench Coates tangent today. I had known about Tench Coates and read about him, but like I was doing research on him specifically just 2 days ago, and then called my buddy who likes to call the ratification of the Constitution a coup, and we like to argue about that. Yeah. Oh, Tina, was that you? Yes, it might have been. Excellent. Yeah, Lauren, dude, great idea. I will make a video about that for sure. Oh, you fell asleep. Oh, what? When you were waiting for me, Matt? Like when I was talking to myself for half an hour? Curious why you guys were talking to each other and ignoring me? It's really strange. So what's really strange, what happened earlier, for those of you just tuning in or have been here the whole time, I have kind of two programs up. I have YouTube Studios and then the XSplit that I'm actually recording and streaming through. And usually I hit stream on the recording program and it just goes to YouTube because I set up the live video on YouTube, then I stream to the live video. For whatever reason, it like worked on Tuesday. It's worked every other time, or Wednesday, I'm sorry. And then this time it just didn't work. I had to like click on YouTube, go live. It's like, come on, YouTube, get it together. Tina, it would be cool if you gave us the heads up for next week so we can research and have a greater discussion participation. Huh. Interesting, Tina. So, I was going with the game. If you guys want, what we can do is start with the game and then talk about something in particular. Why don't we... give you dead air. I would love to have a further conversation. Well, why don't we... I was going to say we can come up with it now off the top of our heads if you like. Make recommendations right now, or I can publish on I don't know, Facebook and Twitter. I can put it out there. Hey guys, what are your recommendations? We can have conversations on both of those channels if you like. Yeah, maybe I'll put out. I have Instagram too. It's hard for me to do Instagram. I've been trying different things, but I'm just posting pictures of dudes who lived 2,000 years ago. Tina, Grace as in Oliver. Okay. Grace, I have a feeling you're a little bit behind the rest of us, which is fine. Great. I'm so glad you're participating. Matt, she wants answers to the test. Oh, I told you, if you need answers to the test, just ask me. The answer is, what do you think? I always found I guess I was attracted to history partially because I always found history questions easier. I'm sorry I keep rubbing my nose. I got a little stuffy throughout this conversation. I must be cramped up in my dusty room. We closed the windows for the first time all summer because it is a little chilly, and now all the dust is in my face. But yeah, I'll throw out some ideas. I'll do it on Patreon too. So if you guys are following me on Patreon, if you're being a patriot, I'll give a little bit more weight to your ideas for topics. What we can do the 12 questions next week. That'll be fun, and then we can go into a discussion about a particular topic. And again, off the top of my head, it's not super easy because we talked about Tench Cokes, and that's what's been on my mind this week. It's the first thing I would have said is talk about how difficult it is to interpret what's his name's stuff. And I now have learned that I need a box of tissues here in case my nose is a little runny because I don't want to be grabbing my nose the whole time. I look gross, and that's super embarrassing. I'm also getting hot, but I don't want to take my hat off now because my hair's messed. But my hair was messed up from wearing the hat all day beforehand. And the problem is, I'm in reverse in the camera, so I want to if I'm not looking at the camera, okay, this is how I fix my hair. But looking in the camera, it's like, oh, it's all back. No, I can't. I can't do that. I can't. Great. I'll put some things out there. If you guys have any more questions, like I said, you guys are still hanging around. I don't want to bail on you while you're here, but I also don't want to overstay my welcome in your screens. So if you want me to leave, tell me in the comments. Make recommendations. Like I said, I'm super open to any recommendation. That being said, at an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes on this video, I'm over 2 hours of constant talking. But again, that's why one of the reasons I started a channel is because I can obviously keep talking. And as soon as I look back here, there, you're bailing, Matt? Yeah, it's late. Let's call it. I love to talk about the American Revolution for hours and hours and hours. Me too. And I have. Yeah, you guys are getting me. Every time I look back at the camera, something comes up here. Matt, round bottom, I saw you. Everyone, I think it's time to call it. This was great, and let's do this every week. I think there's a lot we can do here. I really appreciate you guys all being here. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support. Thank you for hitting like. If you want to get one more like in there, we get up to 11, turn up to 11. That would be fantastic. I would really appreciate it. Lauren, see you next week. Troy, we're all going. Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Tarrant. Thank you, TJ. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everyone who commented at all. Ned, if you're still here, thank you. Scrolling up to find other names. Can't find them. Anyone whose name I didn't say, thank you so much for watching. You guys are the best. Round bottom, I am going to cancel the stream on YouTube first and then here. Probably screw that up too. But hey, you're here because I know about the American Revolution, not because I know how to use computers. So thank you guys so much. And I will be back on Monday with a regular old founder of the day.